Hello and welcome back to the Dune Minute Podcast, your place to dive deep, minute by minute, into the cinematic adaptation of Frank Herbert's world of Dune. I'm one of your hosts, Zach.
And I'm John. It's Friday.
Happy Friday. We've made it.
End of the week, once again.
Yeah, and a really, really good, culmination of a lot of good minutes this week.
For the most part. I mean, Wednesday wasn't a bad minute. It's just
not a lot to talk about.
Not a lot of dialogue.
Yeah.
A lot of nature shots.
Yeah. I think this is probably my most lengthy set of notes for the week. So what do you say we dive into it? And let's talk about minute 134 through 135.
Let's do it.
All
so
right.
yesterday we left off with RJ.
Yep.
Real Jameis. Saying that my thumper saved his life. Go back to reason, Stilgar. He, Paul, is not the one.
Yep.
And we start this minute with Stilgar heavily sighing because he's already over Jameis's bullshit here.
Yeah. Jessica tries to capitalize on the situation.
Sure.
Tries to strike a deal with them, saying that she has very powerful friends or wealthy friends or whatever her exact wording was, but they would offer a big reward if they helped them get back to Caladan.
We have powerful friends. You help us off-world to Caladan, you will be well rewarded.
Yep.
And the immediate response is, what wealth can you offer beyond the water in your flesh?
Stone cold line.
Oh.
Love it.
And Stilgar is Paul fan number one.
Mm-hmm.
Does not give a shit about Jessica.
No. Nope. I'll talk a lot about that.
And I loved how he just the way that he says that to her.
Mm-hmm.
He's just like, you're nothing to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll talk a lot about that in my book notes, but you're absolutely right. He does not give a single shit about Jessica in this moment.
Correct.
Nor does he care about their, reward, their money.
No.
The only thing that's important to them is their water.
Correct.
Now, had she come out with, hey, if you take us back to Caladan, this place that is almost all water, you can have as much as you want.
Guess what? We live on a water planet, motherfucker.
Yeah. Like, know your audience a little bit, Jessica.
Yeah.
Maybe they'd have been like, well, let's consider that.
Yeah. Hey, I have, do you want a whole highliner full of water?
Yeah, right. So the Fremen start to get up, and just the overall mood becomes real tense around this canyon. Stilgar looks down and says that, because he's kind of seated above them on a ledge.
Yeah.
And so he looks down and he explains that Paul is young enough to where he could learn their ways, and that he can stay and have sanctuary.
He may have sanctuary, but the woman isn't trained. Too old to learn.
Too old. It's the same thing. It's the same thing that Yoda said about Anakin starting his training. Too old.
Yeah. Look how that ended up for them.
I know, right? Stilgar removes his cloak and is, getting kind of ready for a fight.
Everyone's squaring up here.
Yeah. And Jessica and Paul are getting real fidgety down here. Jameis
is just fucking, I've been waiting all fucking day for this one.
Yeah, exactly. Stilgar hops down from his ledge and lands right in front of Jessica and looks menacingly at her.
Mm-hmm.
And we get a shot of Jameis right after this. And so he's in like a hat, or his face covering is done in a way to where you really only see the slit that his eyes are looking at. He looks insane right now.
Yeah. Because all of them obviously have the eyes to be bad.
Yeah. I feel like they cranked up the saturation on this.
On him and Stilgar.
Yeah.
Definitely. And the actor who plays Jameis, his name is Babs. Babs has a very intense look in his face.
Yeah.
He's also a Brazilian jiu-jitsu fighter outside of acting and everything too. So
makes sense.
I feel like a lot of this is very instinctual to him. and he was able to just bring it forward into the movie.
Yeah.
So,
which is so crazy because the other role that I know him for the most is
Star Trek.
Yeah, Star Trek: Strange New Worlds, where he plays just like a very kind and good-hearted doctor. I mean, he definitely can kick ass. We see him kick ass a lot in that show.
I'm looking up pictures of him from Star Trek, and he's very, very like gentle face and everything. Yeah. We talked about him during the DJ Dream Jameis moments, but yeah, he's
fantastic actor. Really, really good.
Has a very menacing face in this scene, but like we just talked about in all of his Star Trek stuff, very calm. So it's cool to see that that range that he has.
Yeah.
But yes, he is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu fighter as well.
And we will get to see that in action here in a little while.
Yes.
Thought it was interesting to note that Stilgar keeps his blade the same place that Dr. Kynes kept her blade. Maybe opposite sides of the body, but just kind of in the small of the back.
Yep.
And we find this out because he pulls his blade out and lunges towards Jessica.
And we see Jessica do something for the first time. She fights back.
Yeah, she kicks ass in this scene.
Yeah, she's doing like flips over his arm and shit.
Yeah.
What's going on with that?
I just don't think she's ever been in this position.
That's not where I was going.
Oh.
I was going to ask about the weirding way.
No, I'm not talking about that yet because it's not been brought up.
Yeah, but
we will though. So Jessica likes to put on airs of being kind of
traditional royal. Yeah,
I wasn't going to say like weak because she's a strong character. She's had a lot of very strong moments, but maybe not physically.
Yeah.
Like kick ass in a physical manner. She's always been more of I'm going to use the voice and I'm going to, manipulate you with words and stuff like that. So we've not really seen her fighting prowess yet. But we do here, and she's good.
Very briefly, but we do see it.
Well, brief enough, or we see
enough to get Stilgar turn his own blade on him and hold it at his neck.
Yeah, so. In the span of 4 seconds,
something like that.
Yeah. So while Stilgar and Jessica are fighting, Paul takes the opportunity to kind of like lunge to the side and attack the nearest Fremen.
Yep,
which
is not Jameis.
I had thought for a second it was, but I saw him after on a rewatch. He runs off, and it's not Jameis.
Yeah, I went back and watched several times just to make sure on that one.
Well, it's confusing because that Fremen is wearing the same kind of like headdress and head coverings that Jameis is wearing. So easily confused if you're not being vigilant.
In Art and Soul, heavily referenced, never sponsored. There's actually a really cool section. I can't really talk about it much because it's all like visual design sketches and stuff, but they show off like 30 different iterations of different Fremen ways that they were like kind of storyboarding how not only still suits would look, but just like various headdresses and stuff that the Fremen would also use in conjunction with their still suits and everything.
Nice.
So
very good.
Once again, strongly recommending to listeners, if you like Dune, pick up these books. They're not very expensive, and they're full of just so much cool concept art and everything. So
when Paul attacks this Fremen, as the Fremen is like falling down backwards, we see very subtly Paul reach and grab something on the Fremen's body as he's falling down.
Yep.
This will come into play later, so I'm not going to talk about this anymore, but he takes something off the body. And then he starts to make his way up the hill.
Man, we're just leaving breadcrumbs for next week's episodes, aren't we?
Got to keep them coming back. You know?
Meanwhile, I'm just coming in here. What about the weirding way?
We'll get there, John. We'll get there. So, below, Jessica has gotten Stilgar down onto one knee.
Yep.
And she's
knife at his throat.
Taking his knife is at his throat.
She's got his other hand like on top of his head too.
Yeah.
Like she's not letting him fucking move without him dying.
So she made that look so easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just made very, very quick work of Stilgar. From his new kneeling position, he looks over to the side and he sees one of the Fremen kind of like falling down the hill and falls into the end of the minute.
Yep. That's
it.
That's it. Movie's over.
The credits roll. It's not that much different than the actual ending of the movie.
No, we still got plenty more to talk about. I think we still have 3 more weeks of recording or something like that.
We got
we still have a good bit.
20 minutes.
Yeah.
So about 4 weeks. So would you like to hear a little bit of book notes?
I would, because you promised the people book notes today.
Yes. So this scene and the scenes that led up to this, from the canyon and the Fremen popping out and everything, happy to report that very similar to the books. The dialogue's a bit different. It's pared down just for brevity and for moving the movie along, but that's something that we've seen plenty of times before.
Sure.
One thing that I think could have been added into the movie that we get in the books, and the movie had set us up for this.
Okay.
Is Stilgar reminds the Fremen who are like getting antsy, like they're wanting to kill them. He reminds them of the message they received from Liet Kynes saying, be on the lookout for 2 people who have escaped from the Harkonnens.
Got it.
Does not specifically mention that it's Paul and Jessica. But when Jessica and Paul got separated from Kynes in the testing station,
the Nexus,
Kynes mentioned that she was going to call ahead basically and tell them that they're coming.
I'm going to call collect.
Yeah. So
we're going to get Carrot Top to sit with us at this payphone.
That would have been
calls all day.
That would have been one line of dialogue that was put in that would have given. Well, hang on. Now that I'm thinking about this, Kynes wouldn't have been able to do that in the movie. Movie Kynes would not have been able to do that because she steps out of the station and gets murked by the Sardaukar.
Correct.
Okay. So
yeah, she says she was going to go on to the next station.
Yeah.
And then.
So I guess, okay, I'm talking myself out of this then.
Yep.
Then, yeah, I guess in movie logic, she never got a chance to do that. Okay. So, okay. Ignore that. But in the books, Kynes definitely does get the message to the Fremen.
Okay.
And Stilgar has to like remind them that they've told Kynes that they would, offer protection for them. Then in that same breath is when he goes, yeah, but I don't want to fucking give any protection to Jessica. She's too old. She can't learn shit. I don't like the way she walks. Face looks a little funny.
Her hair, whack. Her gear, whack. Her foot stance, whack. The way that she doesn't even smile, whack. Me, I'm tight as fuck.
That's pretty much what he says. Yeah. The way she doesn't even like the sand walk, whack.
Paul, he's tight as fuck.
That needs to be a Dune meme. So Stilgar's, he's very much open to helping Paul, but he's not sold on Jessica because he does not see her value.
Yeah.
Other than her water, right?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Come back for when we do part 2.
Yeah. So he explains this. He explains this to them. He explains that while Paul is young enough, for the general interest of the group, they can't take Jessica with them because she'd just be a burden on them.
Yeah. I mean, they're already ready to kill Paul and Jessica for their water.
Yeah.
And if if you're already rationing, bringing on 2 more bodies, not good.
No. The initial fight between Stilgar and Jessica starts off a little bit different.
Okay. How so?
Jessica she's using her Bene Gesserit, skills this whole time to like clock them and figure out exactly what, like where the advantage would be. In doing this, she hears the two Fremen talk in the background in Jacobsa, and we have not been introduced to Jacobsa as a language yet in the books.
Okay.
This is where she figures it out. She's like, oh, this is what they're talking, and she can understand them. So she recognizes Bene Gesserit teachings that they're talking about. And she's like, I got this. She's like,
hold up. Let me just fuck with these guys a little bit here. Okay.
So she knows that she needs to show them her value and her skills.
Yeah.
So she does this thing where she like almost like faints, like she feigns a faint. And that's when Stilgar goes to attack her, but she like just, jujitsus it back on him.
Sweeps his feet out from under him or some shit like that.
Yeah. And he's, again, just like in the books, he's down very quickly.
Yeah.
No mention of the knife at his throat in the books.
But she's clearly bested him at this point.
Oh yeah, for sure. She's got him in a position where I'm assuming it's like a headlock kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because he says to them a little bit later in the books, hey, don't be stupid. She could break my neck.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. But yeah, right as she does that, Paul again goes, attacks the Fremen, steals something off his body, and runs up the hill. So that happens exactly as it does in the books. Yeah, so that's the book notes.
Alrighty.
Cool. Anything else on your end for this week?
Nothing else. Most of Art and Soul for this section of the movie is mostly just talking about the characters directly, talking about Stilgar and talking about Jameis. So nothing really from there. All of the stuff in relation to this scene from other sources, like the special features, are going to come much more into play later on in later episodes.
Yeah.
Not so much these initial ones. So.
Yep. Cool. Well, what would you say this week rated at for you?
Even with Paul being a dumbass, which is most of the movie, honestly, I'm going to give this week a very high rating.
Sure.
Probably like an 8.5, I think.
Okay.
Just because the scene with Shai Hulud is so iconic. Like the version of this scene from the Lynch film, even like as campy and goofy as it is still really cool. Mm-hmm. But the way they did it here with that, moment with God and just like hearing the worm's own sounds and seeing how the worm moves, it's so fucking cool.
Yeah.
Like fantastic. No notes.
Well, you have lots of notes. We've been talking about it for 2 hours.
Shut up.
Yeah, I was going to go up in the 7.5 range myself because it was a really good set of minutes. I think there's some stuff they left out that detracts a little bit from me. Just as a fan of the books.
Sure.
But it's still translated really, really well onto the screen.
And we get to see Stilgar and Jameis and their dynamic, which it's very cool.
Yeah.
I hope we get a lot more of it later on.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure we will.
Yeah.
Well, at least for the next 20 minutes.
Definitely get a good amount of it in part 2.
Yes.
And then beyond that.
So cool. Well, this really is just like the introduction to
Fremen culture, really.
Yeah, Fremen culture, and I mean where we're going to be for the rest of the movie, really.
Yep.
I don't think we really leave this canyon too much for the rest of the movie, except for
leaving the canyon is the end of the movie.
Yeah. So I don't know. Let's get comfortable.
This is just the beginning.
Shut up.
As always, you can find us online on Instagram at the Dune Minute. You can also find us on Twitter at Dune Minute, and you can email duneminute@gmail.com if you'd like to get in touch with us. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or on iTunes. You can also rate and comment on the show. Regardless of where you're listening, share the show with your friends.
We will be back next week to continue this conversation between Jameis, Stilgar, and the gang.
Yep.
And surely nothing bad will happen.
No. Why would it ever?
All right, cool. See y'all next week.